Redcoat #1 from Image Comics introduces readers to the world's most irresponsible mercenary and immortal when he's approached to save the world from a dark evil. We've got the review right here. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Redcoat #1 from Image Comics and Ghost Machine Studios. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated. Make sure you stay tuned through the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits first. This issue is written by Jeff Johns with art by Brian Hitch and Andrew Curry, colors by Brad Anderson, letters by Rob Leigh, and the cover art for the main cover is drawn by Brian Hitch with Brad Anderson. Okay, let's jump into the meat of the issue. The story takes place in our reality, or a parallel reality where historical figures and historical events have taken place, but there are elements of magic, sorcery, and wizardry that underpin all the big historical events and the actions taken by his historical figures. For example, the founding fathers of the United States, people like John Hancock, Paul Revere, Benjamin Franklin, they exist in this universe or this reality of Earth, but they have somehow learned or adopted or consumed or taken advantage of dark magics. Some of it from the Native American peoples, some of it from other parts of the world, but magic exists. It's not prevalent and not everybody's aware of it, but it does definitely exist. So that's where we catch up with our main hero, and I use the term loosely. His name is Simon Pure. He is a redcoat, but sort of a conscripted kind of person where he was brought over to the Americas to fight for the British as a redcoat, but he's more of a mercenary and rogue. He doesn't mind lying, cheating, stealing, and being a coward, and just basically doing anything that seems selfish or self-serving. He's got a nice sort of rakish personality, kind of a Han Solo type of personality, but he's definitely not above stabbing somebody in the back or double-crossing somebody or lying or swindling somebody if it meets his ends. He's not evil necessarily, just definitely very, 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 very selfish. And so what happens with Simon Pure, he's fighting in the time of the Revolutionary War, but instead of sticking with the battle, he decides to go AWOL, and he finds refuge in this church that's in the middle of the woods. What he doesn't realize is that while he's hanging out in the church and trying to get some sleep, in the middle of the night, he spies a group of hooded men coming in to perform some kind of ritual or ceremony. The gentleman who's at the altar or the sacrificial table is none other than Benjamin Franklin, and apparently the ceremony was intended to imbue Ben Franklin with immortality. Through a series of basically pratfalls and slapstick clumsiness, Simon falls into the middle of the ceremony, and the spell imbues Simon with immortality instead of Ben Franklin. And then we catch up with Simon about a century later, after he's had a series of adventures and misadventures and all kinds of shenanigans going on, which we don't see, which maybe we'll get to later on. We catch up with him in the 1800s when he's on the run from basically all kinds of people, because in the time that he's been imbued with immortality till years later and maybe even up to the present, he's taken an assortment of jobs as a thief and a contract killer. So he's made all kinds of enemies through all parts of the country. Everybody wants revenge for what they did to their brother or their cousin or their son or whoever it may be. And in the course of the time, he's learned he's immortal because he's been shot, stabbed, burned, hanged, you name it, that's been done to him. And he's buried in it over and over and over again. And somehow he's always figured out the best ways to try and remove himself from a shallow grave. By the end of the issue, we find out that he's in the 1800s. He's been killed again because he's double-crossed a barmaid who wants her money back that he stole, and the mercenary and the I would just say not mercenaries, but vigilantes who want revenge for a murdered cousin have come looking for him. So she gives him up in exchange for payment of his bar tab and any other debts that he might have incurred. He wakes up in a grave, but who's waiting outside of the grave is a small boy with a very, very thick German accent. And we come to find out that that small boy, who has a genius level intellect, is a very young Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein says, "I've been looking for you. I know who you are. I know that you have magical power, at least imbued in you, even if you don't know how to wield it. And I need you to come with me because we need to go save the world." But before they get 2 steps, Simon Pure is surrounded by a gang of hooded individuals who look like the sorcerers that tried to imbue Ben Franklin with immortality through magic almost a century ago. So it seems like they've been searching for Simon Pure for a long time, possibly to retrieve and recover the magic that he accidentally acquired from them many years ago. And that's where we leave the issue. It's very much all set up. It's very much establishing the world and the characters and this alternate fictional history of reality. But that's where we take it as far as the first issue goes. Not much onto the mission per se, but at least beginning of a mission. But most of the issue is spent on setup and establishing who Simon is and what he's all about. What do we like about Redcoat #1 from Image Comics? If you're a fan of historical fiction, which is the type of fiction where you take real life people and real life historical events and gives them a magical or fantasy twist, this story is right up your alley. Simon is used as the vehicle to kind of navigate through the ins and outs of all these historical events and these magical happenings that may have happened behind the scenes, which is like the history you didn't know behind the history that you already knew. It's that kind of storytelling. Plus, Simon is definitely a selfish character, but there's a certain charm and a certain personality to him that kind of gets you on his side, even though you know he's very selfish and he makes all the wrong choices. You sort of kind of want him to succeed despite himself. And that's the kind of world building and storytelling that Jeff Johns has established in this first issue. On the flip side, what didn't we like about Redcoat #1? Simon Pure may not be everybody's cup of tea as a main character. I mentioned Han Solo earlier in that he's sort of a rogue, or he got a rakish personality with plenty of charm, but he definitely has been known to make the poor decisions. Simon Pure takes that to the nth degree because he's been around, in this case, a century or more, but he continues to make the same mistakes over and over again. So even though he self-proclaims he's not particularly bright and that he has many, many bad habits, at some point you got to say, okay, that shtick kind of lasts only so long. Will he experience any character growth? And if he does experience any character growth, it's taking a really slow, long time to get there. And so it's cute to start with, but it might get annoying after a while. Now I'm projecting forward. This is just the first issue. You do get a lot of great character work and world development to kind of get you into the mindset of what's happening here. But the character may turn around in the next few issues. But there is a risk here that because he is sort of obnoxious in his idiocy, that readers may get tired of that pretty soon or pretty quick. So we'll see how it turns out. Let's switch gears to talk about the art. The pencils and inks are both done by Brian Hitch and Andrew Curry, with coloring by Brad Anderson, and it looks fantastic. The character designs are richly detailed. The color application, the shading, feathering, contours all look amazing. Visually speaking, this is a gorgeous looking comic. Plenty of detail, plenty of visual appeal and distinctiveness, and all the characters, in particular the character faces, all have unique individual facial expressions and facial compositions. You feel like you're in a real world full of different and diverse and individuals. So that gives the story a real sense of groundedness and realism. So the art looks fantastic from start to finish. Final thoughts. What do we think about Redcoat #1 from Image Comics and Ghost Machine? Interesting concept. This is going to be a big hit for folks that like alternate or fictional history type stories, because it's history with a magical or fantasy twist. And the main character is charming to a point, even though he's kind of imbued religiously with bad habits and just makes the same mistakes over and over again. So on the plus side, there's a lot of charm and a lot to like in this first issue, especially with the fantastic art. On the downside, I can see how the personality of the main character may get annoying after a period of time if he doesn't show some character development and character growth. So it's a little bit of a reserved recommendation on this one. Therefore, we're going to give Redcoat #1 from Image Comics and Ghost Machine an 8.8 out of 10. How are you liking the Ghost Machine books so far? I know they're just coming out, but are you intrigued? Are you entranced? And what do you think about stories that rely on historical fiction, that take historical people and events and then gives them a fantasy twist? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below. And if you like more reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.